welcome to your direct flight to Funtown. I'm Judah, and welcome. So we have a new concept for the filler episodes of We Just Started Another Podcast. Because beforehand we had the Judah Show episode 4.5 because that day we weren't able to record an episode and release it, so we've just put that in, and I was going to do that again because we need a few more soon, right now I guess, because you're listening to this, but instead I decided to get a new concept where since May I've been charting and rating movies that I've seen out of 10, and I have like criteria for like how I rate stuff, and I thought instead of just keeping it to myself that I would share it with everybody. So basically in these little 0.5 filler episodes, I'm just gonna talk about movies that I watch now. And also, if you're watching the video, you will be able to see that you can see me now. I'm talking directly to a camera. This is crazy. I even dressed up for the occasion, as you can see, as you can view. I got fancy with it. And hopefully that will be a recurring thing for the podcast. This week, the movie that I'll be talking about is the new Nosferatu movie. Just so everybody knows, I'm going to give a little spoiler warning right now. There are most likely going to be spoilers. The chances are very high that I'll be talking in depth about these movies, so I'm probably going to spoil a few things. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and you don't want it to be spoiled, do not watch this. Do not. Turn it off right now. Turn it off. If you don't care though, or you've already seen it, then come along. Alright, so I'll give a brief description of Nosferatu, first of all. Nosferatu is a gothic film about a vampire who stalks and is obsessed with a young woman, an estate agent named Thomas Hutter in the 1830s must travel to Transylvania to meet a man by the name of Count Orlok. His wife Ellen Hutter, who is experiencing horrific visions and an increased sense of dread, is left under the care of their friends. She is soon going to meet an evil entity. So that's the description of the movie if you've never heard of it or don't know much about it. I watched this in theaters on December 29th, 2024. I'm kind of lucky I got to see it in theaters, and so I just got to see it like in really high quality on a big screen with beautiful sound design and all that. I get to hear it all, and that might have improved the score a bit because I got to see it in the best quality I could. So I rated this movie a 9.5 out of 10. And if you don't know, which you don't, I'm not too lenient on 10s. I haven't given a single movie a 10 yet because, it has to be perfect. So this is pretty close. This is one of my most highly rated films. So the director is Robert Eggers. If you don't know him, he's a really good director. He has 4 movies out. The Witch, Lighthouse, The Northman, and Nosferatu. I've only seen Nosferatu and The Lighthouse, and both of them are immaculate films, and I recommend both of them. If you ever get the chance to view it, do it, because they are amazing. Robert Eggers as a director, he just knows what he's doing very well. And so he is it seems like in 4 movies he has mastered directing, and I will be watching all of his films from now on. So we got some actors. Some of these you might recognize, some of these you might not. A big one is Bill Skarsgård, who is Count Orlok in the film. He was the actor of Pennywise in It. He also acted in The Crow, which I haven't seen, but who cares? He acted in it. We also got Lily Rose Depp as Ellen Hutter, Willem Dafoe as Albin Eberhard von Franz. Willem Dafoe has also been in The Lighthouse, which is the other movie directed by Robert Eggers. He was, in the Spider-Man films and The Grand Budapest Hotel by Wes Anderson, which, another little thing about me is I love Wes Anderson movies. They are weird as hell, but I love weird movies. So Wes Anderson movies I definitely will be talking about sometime on this podcast. There's also Nicholas Hoult, who was Thomas Hutter, the husband of Ellen Hutter in the film. And then there's Emma Caring, who was Anna Harding, and Aaron Taylor Johnson, who was Frederick Harding. So those were the friends of the Hutters. That's who Ellen Hutter stayed with when Thomas was away on his journey. Now, I think this movie is definitely one of the best visuals I've seen in a while. Movies have been kind of lacking in visual aesthetics recently, which is disappointing because they're all kind of flat, the lighting is dull, and they don't really, it doesn't seem like they take too much time because they just want to put it all in post. They just add that all in. But with Robert Eggers, he doesn't do that. Most of the lighting seems like it is while they're filming. They use real fire as lighting, which they haven't used since The Witch, which was his first movie, and that was on digital film. And so it's more impressive that he's doing this with actual real film. He's using fire, which they haven't done, because it's kind of a more rough look if you use real fire than if you fake it. It will look a lot more crisp and clean if you fake it, but they kind of wanted that more rough look for this film. Robert Eggers actually discovered the original film of Nosferatu as a kid, and he fell in love with it. In high school, when he was 17, he made a play, or put on a play of Nosferatu, which kind of shows he's been indulged in this story since a child. And he's now, I believe, 41 and just releasing a film about it. He started working on the film in 2015, so it's 10 years ago. That was shortly after The Witch was released. And he took a long time to make it because he considered it a passion project, and he wanted to kind of take his time and make sure everything was perfect. And he also wanted to prove his skills more as a director, so he went on to make The Lighthouse and The Northman before Nosferatu, and he definitely mastered it. He is an amazing director. I feel every single scene in Nosferatu was perfect. Well, I guess it wasn't because I rated it 9.5, but for the most part, the aesthetics are perfect, in my opinion. That one of my favorite scenes, I'll talk about that, is it's the scene where Thomas Hutter gets to a crossroad in the dark, in the depths. It's nighttime. Now, in this film, they use a lot of color filter lenses to make the night, if you've seen the movie, the night is it looks like no other nighttime in any movie. It kind of looks it's slightly blue, but the shadows in this movie are so deep and rich, and that's what she said. And it's just, he wasn't scared to overwhelm the scene in shadow because he did it right. A lot of movies lately, people have been complaining that they're really dark, and you can't see anything. They lower the brightness to 0. That's what it seems like, at least. But then, in this movie, it's very dark. Most of it's at night, so it's a very dark film, but Robert Eggers figured out how to make it look good. and not just having the whole screen be pitch black. So it was kind of like, it's different than most films recently. And I'm pretty sure they filmed the nighttime scenes during the day and just used that color filter lens. And so it made the nighttime look unreal and like no other movie looks. And there's this music video that used a night or day to night filter, and it just didn't look right at all. So when I found out that is what they did in Nosferatu, I think, for the most part, that I could be wrong about that, I'm not gonna lie, but when they did that, I was kind of impressed because it looked pretty real. But then I understood why now the nighttime looked so different than everything else, like other nights in other movies. But they use color filter lenses even during the day, so the day could look dull, the nights could look crisp, as they describe it. But my favorite scene is the crossroads where Thomas Hutter gets picked up by a driverless carriage and brought to the castle of Count Orlok. And that scene is one of the most beautiful scenes I have ever seen in any movie. It's immaculate. Like, just the way they lit, I guess they were very specific about how the lighting was. So, like, the trees could, only go into the road this much, and then there's this much shadow being cast on the ground, and we want the light to bleed into the forest only so much. And so I guess they were so meticulous about it, but it worked so perfectly because the scene is the best looking scene in the entire movie. It feels out of this world. Like the whole scene is like, it's very open, even though it's just a path through the woods. It's very open, and the moonlight throughout the whole movie, the moonlight is just so bright, and it looks just really cool. What else is there? Dang it, I was gonna say something, but now I can't remember. Damn. Bounce on it. You know that meme? That is from this movie. Very silly, very goofy. A disgrace is what I say it is. A disgrace. So Bill Skarsgård, who was Count Orlok, that's his real voice. In the movie, he used his real voice. He trained with an opera singer, and he learned Mongolian throat singing to get that voice. He lowered his voice, if you haven't heard, he lowered his voice actually a whole entire octave to be the voice of Count Orlok. And I guess it was really weird because people on set, like, in between takes, he was just practicing the voice and, like, warming up and stuff. So he was just, like, doing Mongolian throat singing just off stage, and it was just really bizarre for everybody to experience. So, like, that, honestly, that just shows commitment. I know, there was a trailer that was just released with Bill Skarsgård. It's some movie, I don't remember the name, but he's like a car thief, but then he gets locked in a car, that's like actually a trap to like teach this guy a lesson. And so it's like a horror movie. It's a weird concept because it all takes place in a car, and that's it. Like, that's the whole scene. And so, or the whole movie. So it seems really bizarre to me. But I'm looking forward to that. Bill Skarsgård has been in some pretty good stuff. So, and he's clearly a committed actor. If he's doing this much for a role, it might just be because Robert Edgar is amazing and he wanted to commit to this role so much, or he's just a committed actor. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but what I have seen, like clips of it and stuff, seems like he committed to that really well too. So I'm hoping the new movie is supposed to come out sometime in 2025. I'm hoping the movie looks and is good. So I watched a video actually this morning about the cinematographer of Nosferatu, I guess the cinematographer and Robert Eggers get along like really well. It seems like they've made films before in the past together. And he talked about the carriage scene, the four-way intersection in the woods that I just talked about, and that's where I got my information for that. That scene's just so great. I'm gonna bring it up again. That scene is amazing. I love it so much, and honestly, it's probably one of the best scenes I've seen in general, like in any film. The cinematographer also talked about the lighting and what they did with that. They use real fire, but they like to use single source light. So there's like in the whole film, or not the whole film, in one scene, like the scene where Thomas Hutter meets Nosferatu for the first time in the castle. That room is lit by one fire, and that's it. So they just use that single fire to light the entire room. That's kind of why, or it's a good thing, because like then they can cast the look of Nosferatu in shadow, and since the whole movie's cast in shadow, it's easier to do that if you have one fire lighting everything. Half of the scene is going to be cast in darkness, because there's just fire can cause long shadows, and like all you see, there's this one clip where it's just all you see is the silhouette of Thomas and Nosferatu, because the fire is causing that shadow, and they're pointing towards the fire, so all you see is just the silhouette. They did a similar thing in that, like that in Dune, or Dune 2, whichever one. They did a similar in like explosions, so they work in a similar way where both of those movies look incredible, Nosferatu and Dune. I'm not going to go too deep into Dune yet. I will eventually talk about Dune. But like in Dune, they had an explosion and they silhouetted everybody in like darkness, because the explosion, like a real explosion, would just cast everybody in this silhouette if you're looking at the explosion. Same with a flame, like in Nosferatu. They use real fire, and I don't know if I mentioned this, but they haven't used real fire since The Witch, and that's because The Witch was Robert Eggers' first film, or first feature length film, and so they didn't have as much of a budget or as much of an influence or as much power to be able to get film, so they had to do it digitally, and it's much easier to get fire digitally to look right than on film. But then in the Northman, they wanted it to look more clean, so they didn't use real fire in that, because that would have made it like how Nosferatu looks. It would be very unclean, kind of flickery and all that, so they didn't use real fire in that either. And then in The Lighthouse, all they had was oil lamps, mainly for fire, but they used black and white film, and black and white film really hasn't advanced much recently, and so they needed just a brighter, stronger light than fire can do, and so they haven't used real fire for 2 movies. It's been 10 years since they've used real fire, and then in Nosferatu they decided to use it. Like they use, since like Victorian era, I'm not sure exactly what era, but they didn't have much electricity, and so they used a lot of candles in the film, and they used a lot of fireplaces and all that, and some scenes are fully lit by just a flame, and so, but they really figured out how to do it correctly, because that could either go horribly wrong or horribly right. It could go horribly wrong or great, like look amazing, and they figured out how to make it look amazing. I mean, this movie kind of proves that if you take 10 years to make a movie, you'll make a masterpiece. And that's exactly what they did. So, like rushing movies, trying to get them out in 1 year. Like, this is an odd example, but Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, the second one, They made that in a year. They wrote and filmed it in 1 year, and it is okay, you know? So if you rush films like that, they're not going to be that great. But if you take as much time as you want, just don't rush the film. Take as much time as you need, because if you take 10 years, you could make the best movie anybody's seen that entire year. Like, 2024, there were some good movies, like, the Dune movies, Nosferatu, other ones, but, most movies in recent years, they just look dull, and they're not aesthetically pleasing at all. But then they were able to I completely forgot where I was going with this. I'm not gonna lie. I have no idea where I was just going with that. It might come back to me, but probably not. That is really a shame. A little fun fact that I saw in this kind of interview documentary thing with the cast, that Bill Skarsgård, who was Count Orlok, was actually supposed to be Thomas Hutter, and Anaya Taylor-Joy, who was the main character in The Witch, was going to be Ellen Hutter. But then, over the 10 years that they were making this film, that kind of changed up, switched up, and now it is the cast that we have today. And honestly, I think the cast that we have now, that they did, is significantly better than what they were gonna do. Like, Bill Skarsgård, he's kind of made to be a horror actor, like acting as the monster, because he's 7 feet tall and can make the creepiest faces. Even though he was mainly covered in makeup for the entire, I didn't even know that it was him. He was unrecognizable in the film, but he can do things like lower his voice like that, and he's very tall, so he just looms over everybody, like many monsters and villains should. It definitely adds a lot of evilness to it. So I think it's good that he was switched to be Count Orlok instead. Now, Count Orlok is nasty. Like, what the hell? Who imagines this creature? First of all, they added a mustache, because in the original, he didn't have a mustache. But then they added a mustache, and that's gross. It did not look good. Now, the reason they added a mustache was because they were modeling after, German dukes or something like that. And that's what they look like. They have these big bushy mustaches and, these weird-looking hats and outfits that he wore. So that's why he has a mustache. But, dude, it makes it significantly worse. It's just this long, unkept mustache. They didn't... when they introduced him, my whole family was just, thought it was nasty. And then he's dead, right? So he's decaying. And so he has these, he's rotting. He literally just has chunks out of his skin and stuff and, this nasty shit. And, bro, it works, right? He's supposed to be a monster, a villain, a dead dude. So they designed him well, but it's gross to watch. There are numerous things in that film that are hard to watch. There's one scene where, what's her name? Ellen Hutter gets, a stake, a metal, I guess, ice pick, I would describe it as, through her hand. Because they were trying to show how, she's no longer here. She's, possessed, and so she can't even feel it. But that is uncomfortable to watch somebody get their hands stabbed through with a stake. So I looked away on that part. That was very hard to watch. And then also, I just thought of this. If you ever want to watch watch the movie, especially in theaters. Don't watch it with your parents. Do not watch Nosferatu with your parents. I did, and that was a grave, grave mistake, because there are some scenes that you do not want to see with your parents around, kind of sexual scenes. I mean, like, they didn't really show anything. There's one scene where they showed, like, a naked woman. Oh no. But that wasn't like a sexual scene. That was like there was a sacrifice happening. But then in the sexual scenes, they didn't really show anything. But, like, it's still uncomfortable to watch that happening. Now, mind you, the screen in a theater is huge. And then the sound is double the volume that you would want to hear that stuff at. And so it is very uncomfortable to sit next to your parents while two of the characters are going at it pretty rough. Now, I was praying. I was sitting in that seat. I was sitting in the seat in the movie theater praying that they didn't show anything during that scene. And I believe they didn't. They kind of hid it. But, the sounds, they were still showing the actions. They just kind of strategically covered up the inappropriate body parts. But I wouldn't, because the sacrifice part with the nude woman was before that scene. And so I wouldn't have been surprised if they did show stuff. And so that's why I was kind of worried, like, hoping that they didn't show anything. Luckily they didn't, but I still do not advise you to watch it with your parents. Same with The Lighthouse. There's some weird scenes in there too. Like, I've seen some movies with, like, mainly comedy movies that just put inappropriate scenes in there because they're funny. But, like, my dad's sitting right over there, and like, my dad will suggest the movie. He'll be like, this is the funniest movie. I think something about Mary, I believe. Yeah, I think it's something about Mary. There is a scene that I never want to see. I'm not even gonna mention it because it might get, I will. So, a man pleasures himself, and he gets his juices on his ear, and then he opens the door to Mary. Mary's right there, the woman named Mary, and it's just dangling off his ear. And guess what? My dad suggested this movie, and then when that scene came on, he said he completely forgot about that scene. And my dad was sitting right over there, and I had to view that scene with my parents. So it's really unfortunate when that stuff comes up in a film and you just aren't expecting it. When I'm watching it alone, like, who cares? That is so incredibly funny. Like, it's hilarious to watch that happen. But as a family occasion, watching a movie, and then that shows up, please don't do that again. It's very rude, and I do not like it. Every movie should have at the beginning, hey guys, by the way, there's some weird stuff that happens. Don't let your parents watch this with you. That would be helpful, but they don't do that. So now I have to sit there in the most uncomfortable scenes, and so sad. It's so sad. Like, what is the name of the movie? Getting Over Sarah Marshall. Dude, the main actor, I don't remember his name. I should know his name, but dude, we see full frontal nudity of him 5 times in the span of a minute. And once again, my dad suggests this movie, and he completely forgot about that scene. Like, it's every single time we watch a movie, he'll be like, oh, this movie isn't that bad, and then the worst scene I've ever seen in my life is in it. And then when we watch a movie where he's like, I don't know about this movie, every single scene is perfectly fine. Every single one. Like, there's nothing bad about the whole entire movie. But then when he tells me that the movie's fine, that's when I see the most disgusting, inappropriate scene ever. Like, dude, come on. It's disgraceful. Vile. Appalling. Unwanted. Rude. You get my point? I think that's really all I have to say about the movie. Now, comment down below, guys, if you like this kind of concept, you know, that I'm doing for these kind of solo episodes. Just so you know, this is kind of the first one, so it might be a bit dull, might be a bit boring. Hopefully they'll get better over time. Now, you know, I'm here, so it's going to be great either way. But just comment down below your opinions on this, you know, if you want to see more. There's going to be at least one more episode made. I'm going to record that tomorrow. It'll be released a week after this one. So you'll get at least 2 of these episodes. But if you like these, just tell us so we know if you would enjoy these. And I guess I'll see you next time. Yep, that's it. All right. Bye.